Hey there, I think we're live. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. It's Sam with an author guest, if you didn't know already. I'm here with fantasy author Garrett K. Jones to talk about reading, writing, publishing, fantasy fandom, and all that fun stuff. Hey, Garrett, how's it going?
It's going. How you doing, Sam?
Doing well. Glad to be here. I'm glad we can finally schedule this. I know we've been trying for a while.
Yeah,
I,
and
I
I'm
like to
glad that schedules were able to finally click.
yeah. I know we're both busy. I like to do these interviews. For whatever reason, I didn't have any interview guests since like April or May. I don't know if it was just a busy summer or what for people, but I haven't had anyone on in a while. So this is the first one in a while. And as you can see at home, Garrett is coming to you live from around orbit around the Earth. So yeah, we're getting great signal out there.
Yeah. I guess the closer you get to the satellites, the better it bounces off.
That makes sense in some sort of non-sciencey made up way. So anyway, yeah, Garrett is a fantasy author who has written the Archives of Icínq-Régn, a series of, I think you have 5 books out, is that right?
Currently, yes.
And the most recent book, yeah, and there's going to be more, I guess, but the most recent book is Mantle of the Fatherless. So I'll let him tell you about those in just a minute. But thank you, Garrett, again for coming on with us today and being here to answer our questions. So
Yeah,
as
I'm
always,
excited.
yeah, I'm glad to have you. As always, I have some questions prepared, but we want to hear from you too. So let's make this an interactive, good discussion. If you're watching this today, if you're a fan, a reader, an aspiring author, friend of Garrett or a friend of mine, post your questions in the chat about reading, writing, publishing, fantasy fandom, or all those topics, because we want to hear from you too, and we'll have a good time. All right, Garrett, could you please, for those who aren't familiar at home, could you give us a quick overview of your books and your major writing work? I guess basically your main series, and tell us what it's all about.
Yeah, so I have a fantasy series called The Archives of Icínq-Régn. There's 5 books, as you've mentioned already. The first book is called The Heirs of Menenius. That kind of gets the ball rolling. Um, Menenius is he's the first half elf, half human hybrid mage, and the story picks up with him in the midst of a war that he has kind of kickstarted by trying to exterminate dragons.
Hmm,
And um, and as far as the rest of the series is concerned, this is the only time we get to see him in full physical form. His presence is felt throughout the rest of the series, but he dies at the end of this prologue or
okay.
midway through the prologue. Um, and so the first book deals with his 3 heirs, his sons who have been prophesied to kind of fulfill his conquests and finish the work that he started. And they've all got their own agendas and stuff like that. And but as prophecies are wont to do, they require challengers to face against the threats. And so we are introduced to 3 young heroes. Gavin, who is he's referred to as the Dragon Mist. He's a ranger that's been bonded with a dragon on a metaphysical, metaspiritual level. There's Asher, who is a priest in training. He was raised in a monastery, and while he doesn't necessarily believe the same belief system that they do, he's kind of tied into it. And then there's Amara, who is a halfling princess, who is an incredibly powerful mage, despite the fact that she's only been training for about 12 years. And she um, she has an important part to play with regards to um, what happened in the prologue with Menenius. As far as the rest of the series is concerned, book 2 follows right on the heels of book 1, and it focuses specifically on Gavin. Book 2 takes place concurrently with book 3 takes place concurrently with book 2, and it follows Asher. Um, and that book 3 focuses more on including the vampires that are in my series, which no,
Okay.
they don't sparkle.
Mhm.
Uh,
Good. Yeah.
and then book 4 picks up right on the heels of book 3, and it takes a secondary character that you're introduced to in book 2 and puts him at the forefront of a new adventure. And then book 5 takes a nice leap ahead by 20 years and introduces a whole new generation of characters.
Oh wow. Okay. And book 5 is the most recent one so far.
Yes, it's been out for about a year and a half now.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like it's definitely a high fantasy world adventure. Would you say it's kind of in the vein of like Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, that kind of stuff ish?
Um, when I usually do events and people are asking me about it, I usually say it's like Lord of the Rings, but with far less walking, and it's like Game of Thrones, but with far less graphic content.
I can appreciate that. I can get behind that. Cool. I haven't actually read Great Game of Thrones, but that's what everyone says about it. So
Yeah, well, I haven't read any of the Song of Ice and Fire by
yeah,
Martin, but I've watched through the original series that was on HBO,
yeah,
and first few seasons were great, a little too graphic in some areas, but the last couple seasons just kind of, you know.
yeah. But I know dragons are a big part of that. And it sounds like they're a big part of your world too. So yeah.
Yes, they are. However, there's kind of a caveat that they are they're an endangered species because
Okay.
of what happened in the events leading up to the prologue of book one.
That makes sense. I mean, dragons should be kind of this mystical, maybe not everyday commonplace thing. They're kind of rare. So
Yeah,
it's good. And you had like three-ish main characters, who were siblings, is that right?
they're not
Yeah,
siblings. They're
yeah, I was thinking of the king's three children. No,
well,
that's
yeah. You've got the title characters, who are the antagonists, and yeah, they're half siblings,
okay, okay.
and
Then
so
you have
they
Gavin and Asher and Amara, and they're
no,
the
Gavin, Asher, and Namara are completely
are,
separate from
are,
that.
are different from those. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And they're the heroes. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then you have a new group of heroes in book five, and it sounds like you're planning more. We can talk about that.
I'm
Yeah.
planning at least two more. I've actually started working on book six. I checked, I was working on chapter 16.
Okay,
Uh,
wow.
and so yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
trying to flesh that one out. There's some things I'm doing with that one, and I got to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily like the direction it's going. I may have to revamp some of the stuff because like I want to be building towards this huge epic war,
Hmm.
and I haven't inserted any of the threads that I'd like to insert.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We've all been in the messy middle there in the process where you have this vision of what you want your book to look like. So you have your blank slate, you have your vision of a finished book kind of in your head,
Yeah.
and somewhere in the middle there, there's this mess that eventually turns into something beautiful, but it takes time and effort.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
Like I mean the content that became book one actually started off as something I was writing when I was living overseas 23
okay,
years ago.
wow,
And it took from but I mean I'd been developing the characters for years before that in high school. And so from the time of like early conception in I would say my sophomore year of high school all the way through freshman or sophomore year, all the way through the time that I published that was about almost 20 years because the book
wow,
came out in 2015. I started working on these characters in 1996, 1997.
crazy. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know how far apart you'd space them, but most of the time, if you're on book five, this isn't a new thing for you. So yeah, yeah. So
Well,
you've been playing a long game.
kind of, yeah. And I mean, book two was actually a story that I had created my freshman year of high school. And that one had a much different tack because all the characters I developed were comic book superheroes.
Oh,
Um,
hey, you,
and
you're speaking my language now. Another kind of thing.
And so like the Gavin character, like he was like the Green Ranger meets Batman meets Iron Man based out of San Francisco and dragon themed armor and stuff like that. And uh when I started developing what I was doing with these characters, I just came to the realization that they would fare far better in a fantasy environment than in like, modern day
And like,
superhero
yeah,
sci-fi.
yeah.
Just simply because I could get away with saying, well, it's all magic.
Right,
I
right.
don't have to explain anything because that's the ex machina right there.
I mean, comic books are play pretty loose with that too. But still, yeah, yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I took that story, and that became like the core elements of that story became the focal point for what became book two.
Okay. Wow.
And then
Yeah.
book three, it was that was an interesting thing because I had started writing book three almost from the time, like about 3 months after I finished writing book two.
Yeah.
I got through one chapter and I didn't like it. I put it away for a number of years, and then I came back to it probably in 2015 or 16, and that's when things really started kind of clicking and falling into place, and that one worked out well. And what's funny is um Rise of the Shadowkin is actually the shortest of the 3 books, or of the 5 books, I'm sorry. Because it's the only one that's under 300 pages.
Huh. Okay. There you go. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, you've been playing the long game. You've been working on this for a long time, and you're 5.5 books in. I think you've done this a few times before, so I'm
Yeah.
confident you'll see. We will see the last couple come out, at least these next few you have planned.
Well, don't
So
worry. I don't plan on eating myself into a sofa like George Martin. Um, I will finish the series before I die.
yeah, yeah. Good to hear. Good to hear. And probably before they make a TV adaptation too.
If they do, I sure as heck hope that they do it as animation and not live action, because
Sure.
I'm a big fan of traditional animation, and I think it would do very, very well.
One day, maybe, maybe. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you got a lot of good ideas, I haven't read the series, but just everything you just said in these last 5 or 10 minutes sounds, like an exciting story to me. How did you get interested in writing in this fantasy genre? Like, what are some of the books, movies, stories, games, whatever that inspired you?
Um, so fantasy has always been something I've always liked. Like, I mean, I grew up, so like my formative years were spent in the Phoenix area up until
Okay,
I was about 7, and then we moved back to California. And then so during that time, I remember summers watching Empire Strikes Back on VHS.
nice.
I actually watched Empire more than I watched the original Star Wars, even Return of the Jedi.
They do say it's the best.
It is, but the funny thing is, my first memory of Star Wars is actually seeing Return in the theater.
Right.
I was about one and a half or something like that.
Okay.
But and that's pretty early for a memory.
Yeah, it
But
is.
the but one of the other movies that stood out to me was Disney's Sleeping Beauty, because it had a dragon in it.
Okay.
Um, and I loved that concept of good versus evil. It's very clear cut. Uh, you have, Prince Philip, who fights Maleficent in dragon form. I thought that was really cool and epic. And then he saves Aurora. Um,
Spoilers, not okay.
yeah, and so
Not
I
a
have
lot.
always grown up on those stories. Like Robin Hood was always I
Okay.
liked stories that have a definitive good versus evil
Yeah.
message behind them.
I think most
Uh,
of us like that. We can appreciate things ones where things are less clear cut. Some of the time there's a place for both, but I think there's something in us that loves the epic heroes and the fairy tales and all that stuff.
yeah, and so so I didn't get into writing fantasy right away. It was like the first thing I ever really did that I where I wrote that was I got this little notebook when I was in 3rd grade, and it was right after around the time that I saw the movie Hook.
Okay,
And so I kind of got back into Peter Pan in a way, and I'd always been a fan of the Disney film, and
sure.
uh, but I started writing this version that included myself in Peter Pan's place. It was like one page. It was not very well written.
Hey,
I
third
found
grade.
it years later. I'm like, dear God, what was I thinking? And so it was my first foray into writing fan fiction. And so then as I grew older, Batman and the X-Men were formative things for me. I loved
Of
comic
course,
books. I grew up on
of course.
them. Um, but I never really saw myself in like doing anything fan fiction with that stuff um all that much. And then I got into Power Rangers.
Mhm.
And a few years into that series being out, that's when I started really getting into writing. I was in middle school at the time,
Okay.
and I started creating my own characters based on myself and people that I knew, and
Cool.
incorporating them as my own team. And then eventually, what I did was um, after high school, when X-Men hit big at the box office,
Yeah.
that kind of stuck with me. I was overseas, so I started developing my own team of X-Men characters, which a friend of mine actually helped me kind of piece this all together. I was feeling such horrible homesickness that what I was doing is I was drawing my friends as these characters.
Cool.
And I'm like, let's do something more productive with this instead of just me wallowing in the fact that I can't hang out with my buddies. And so I started redrafting these characters, and that's when I started getting the first beats of what became the series. Um,
That's right somewhere.
and so I really liked it. Um, and so there are nods throughout my series that play off of my fandoms that I enjoy. So like in the prologue of book one, there's a reference to Jedi and Sith and lightsabers without being too on the nose.
Yeah.
Um, in book two, readers are introduced to a crew of smugglers that are my homage to the cast of Firefly.
Nice.
It does get a little on the nose because the ship that they sail on is called the Dragon Serenity. Um, so if you're familiar with the show, you'll get that reference.
Yep.
But
Yep.
um, I had some fun with that, and then obviously Bram Stoker's Dracula, and and some of those elements from like the trilogy played
Nice.
into book three. But I'm also a big fan of science fiction, and so I had elements like I'm a big fan of the Halo franchise, and so
Okay.
elements of Halo, um, some of the architecture and made its way into some of the books, especially in book four.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite a range of influences. And I mean, you're speaking my language. I mean, I think based on your timeline, I think I'm a little younger than you. I wasn't around for Return of the Jedi in theaters, but
yeah,
Star Wars, comic books, stuff like that. That was all my upbringing and everything. So that's great. Yeah, it sounds like we all in some sense we take the things we love, consciously or unconsciously, and we combine them into a new thing. I mean,
yeah,
most of us don't invent anything completely new. We can kind of draw from influences that have come before. But I mean, those are some great influences, and you're putting
yeah.
them there creatively in a new, fun way. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I'm at a point where I don't read a lot of fantasy. I mean, that I have read some,
Hmm.
uh, but like I tend to avoid hard fantasy. Like that's part of the reason why I haven't read Game of Thrones,
Hmm.
or I haven't read the Wheel of Time series at all.
Okay. Okay.
And
Yeah.
the reason being is because I don't want to take what other authors have done well and and emulate it in a way that kind of bastardizes it.
That's
I
kind of
want I
yeah.
want what I do to stand out. I will take influences like there is a country that's introduced in book five that um, that it's talked about in previous books, but you don't get to physically see the location until book five,
Okay.
and it's called the Sovereign Empire of Ronso. And Ronso is like this is where we start playing with like houses and lords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't do any noble houses like that with the first four books.
Okay.
So um, I I wanted to play around with that and at incorporate it, but it's done in a different way.
Okay. No worries. Hey, I mean, you're doing your own thing, and yeah, you don't want it to be too derivative.
Yeah.
All fiction, or I mean, all good fiction these days, kind of has to reflect that balance between nothing can be completely new, but it also can't be derivative. So it's just like, where do you find that balance? Yeah,
Exactly.
I was gonna ask you about literary influences, and maybe you don't have many if you're intentionally not reading fantasy stuff because you don't want to be too influenced. You did mention Bram Stoker, Dracula, so that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And as far as other reading influences, I mean, I'm reading all the time. Like, um, just earlier this month, late July, early August, um, I hit my reading goal for the year of 30 books
oh, good
because
go.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks,
Okay.
and I hit my reading goal, and I expanded it to 40. So I hit 30 books,
Yeah.
added 10 more to it. I've so far read three more books, so I'm at
Great.
33.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of what I'm listening to is either mystery or thriller or science fiction or some
Okay.
kind of combination of those genres. And just because I like I'll listen to it. I like the way that characters riff off of each other. And it's not necessarily because I'm looking to borrow any influences, but what I'm looking at is I'm just letting it just kind of, fill that creative um
Right. Yeah.
reservoir.
It's also fun. It's fun to just read good stories and listen to them.
Exactly. In fact, the one I just got done listening to yesterday is called Temporal. It's
Okay,
an
I was gonna
Audible
ask you.
original,
Yeah. It's
and it's kind of it's interesting. It deals with
sci-fi.
people living on Mars. They're humans living on Mars 1,000 years from now.
Okay.
They want to come back to Earth, but they want to make sure that Earth is safe after something happened, some kind of catastrophe.
Right.
And so they send agents back through time
Huh.
to the 20th and 21st centuries to figure out what happened.
That sounds
And
cool.
so they're picking through the pieces, and it's a lot of fun. If time travel is one of those things that breaks your brain, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you can think more than just in two directions, I think a lot of listeners will enjoy it. And it's got a full cast of
Yeah.
performers doing voiceover work, so I
Oh,
loved
cool.
it.
You said it's an audio book, or I mean, it was it originally a novel, or was it is it like
I think it was an
I mean,
audio drama that was
audio drama? Okay,
specifically produced for Audible.
that's cool. I was going to ask who's the author. I mean, maybe there's not one single author then, but
There is,
oh,
but it's got
Temple.
a full cast of characters instead of just one
Okay.
narrator.
Okay. Anyway, that sounds good. I personally am not a big audio person. I wish I was because I could read faster. I don't retain it as much, but my wife loves stuff like that. So that does sound cool. Temporal and Audible. Maybe
Yeah, I got into reading audiobooks about 10 years ago. I was doing my master's degree, and when you're doing stuff like that, you're constantly having to read textbooks.
yeah.
And my program, my classes were like 8 weeks long, so every week I'm having to read like 300 or 400 pages
Oh yeah.
of text. And so that kind of broke me as far as like picking up a physical copy. I still try to pick up physical books every now and then. Um, but I get really behind on it because um, it feels like there's no time to just sit down and read.
Oh yeah. I understand.
But
I think we all have that same struggle.
so the audiobooks have been really good for me because over the last few years, either working in education, driving to school sites, or with the job that I have now where I'm on my feet all the time and I'm working by myself, it's easier for me um, to simply just turn it on, listen,
Yeah,
and get some listening time in, however long that is.
it's good. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, we all find a way that works for us. Yeah, I was gonna ask, yeah, I'll shift gears a little bit. That's a good segue actually, but I've asked people before, like what's the like what's the hardest part of the writing process for you? But the number one answer I've gotten usually is find the time. So, tell us like what else occupies you during the day? You have a day job. I think when we were chatting, you mentioned you have kids. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I have one son that I have 50% of the time.
okay,
Um, but even though I have him 50% of the time, I'm still a full-time dad. That doesn't
sure,
that doesn't change.
sure.
Um, no, as far as like finding the time to write, I will find just about any opportunity I can.
Mhm.
Sometimes if something strikes me, I will write down. I like having the note app on my phone because I can pull it out and I can just start typing things away. Um, whether it's scripting out my stuff for a podcast or for a YouTube episode or whatever, or if I'm working on a short story. Um, I'll pull it out, and since I'm on Apple, I can just pull it up on my phone, or I can take my iPad in with me to work, and I can pull it up there and continue working on whatever it is I'm working on.
Yeah.
Um, as far as finding the time to write, it just there are so many there. It's about making the time, whether it's just calendaring that opportunity to just sit down and write. Most of the time I come home, all I want to do is veg.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm on my feet 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and
What kind of job are you doing?
I'm a facilities
Okay.
I'm a facilities director. And so it's not that big of a building. It's a big building, but it's not like massive complex. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, and so um, when I'm not parenting, when I'm not working, um, I am part of an ongoing Star Wars podcast,
Nice.
and my love of Star Wars.
What's it
Um,
called?
it's called War of the Stars.
Okay.
This the we actually the podcast itself has been around for 7 years. I've only been on as a co-host for the last two.
Okay.
Um,
That's cool.
and it's a lot of fun. We've got a couple of guys that I get to work with on a weekly basis, and it's been a blast because it actually kind of helped me because a couple of years ago I was going through a divorce. My ex-wife and I were big Star Wars fans.
Okay.
We both still are,
Yeah.
but because of how intrinsic that was to part of our relationship, um, it almost killed Star Wars for me.
Oh wow.
Um, Thankfully, some of the newer programs that have been out on Disney Plus haven't killed Star Wars for me, but
Good.
that
Which,
almost
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, so talking with these guys on a
Mm-hmm.
weekly basis has kind of it's brought back that love for a series that I very much
That's
enjoy.
great. So let me guess, like you like the originals and she liked the prequels and it's just, and now I'm
Actually, we were both really
yeah,
good
yeah.
fans of the originals.
I was just kidding. I'm sure
Um,
that wasn't, yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
you're fine.
But
Um,
yeah,
no, we were both big fans of the originals. We did like the prequels to a point. We both agreed that our kids weren't going to watch Star Wars until they had a deep appreciation for hating Jar Jar Binks as a character. Not the actor. The actor did a great job.
and when he returned to Mandalorian,
Huh?
when he returned in the Mandalorian,
That was pretty cool. I liked
yeah,
seeing Ahmed
yeah,
Best. I almost
yeah.
didn't recognize him, and I'm like, dude, that's
I
Ahmed.
didn't realize it until people posted on the internet afterward. I was like, why is everyone talking about Jar Jar Binks? And it was,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I'm not a fan of the character, and but um, so yeah, so I got back into that through the podcast, and it's been helpful. And so I just look as far as finding time, I I just try to make the time as much as I
Yeah.
possibly can.
You fit it in, and I mean, yeah, we all have priorities. We're all busy. Um, I mean, you know, you could work a day job and be a dad, and that's not a bad life. It's a fulfilling life for many people. But if you don't take the time or make the time to pursue your dreams, it won't happen. So,
Right.
and sometimes that's on the side for us. You mentioned just curious. You mentioned you were in education for a while.
Yes.
Like, were you a teacher?
I was both a teacher and a substitute teacher.
Okay. Teaching
Uh,
what?
well, I taught mostly middle school and high school,
Okay.
um,
Like,
teaching language arts,
cool, cool.
and
Yeah.
I liked the content that I was teaching. I didn't enjoy the environments in which I was teaching.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm a former English teacher here, and middle school broke me. Sixth grade broke me. I'll just say that. Yeah, yeah. I,
yeah,
I still have some PTSD post teaching stress disorder about that. Yeah, is that?
yeah.
Yeah,
A little over a year ago, I was still I'd gotten back into substitute teaching, um, and a year ago May, I was subbing for an English class. It was for a teacher I'd subbed for multiple times, and the final straw for me was I had a student in the final class of the day.
I don't need all the gory details, but go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he was incredibly disrespectful. He threw something at the back of my head,
Yep.
and I came to a point where I'm like, you know what? As soon as the school year's done, I'm not re-upping. I don't want to do anything with education ever again. um, I'm kind of done with the overprivileged teenagers.
Yeah, we need people who are good with kids, and God bless them. My wife is one of them. She still teaches middle school online, and
Mhm.
maybe online is better. You can't get anything thrown out the back of your head. But I realized the hard way I was not gifted, at least with that age group or with that environment. So yeah, God has directed me to other things,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, but I respect teachers and even former teachers because I am one. I know it's a hard job, but
Yeah. It can be a very,
for
very
sure,
challenging
for
job.
sure. But I think, yeah, I've talked to a few writers who are also are or have been English teachers, so it's cool how common that is, I guess. But
Yeah. And the fun thing is I have been able to apply my love for literature and for creative writing into a teaching venue. So I teach monthly workshop classes at my local library,
oh, it's awesome.
um, focusing on different skills, different techniques. I have one actually coming up on September 7th, so 2 weeks from today, and we're going
Probably
to
a
be,
more mature audience there.
huh?
Hopefully, a more mature audience there.
Yeah, well, what's fun is the audience kind of varies from
Yeah.
having a lot of adults to having a lot of kids to having a mix. Um,
Usually, it's people who want to be there.
yeah, it's people who do want to be there, and it's been a lot of fun. The this the last one that I did at the beginning of this month was it was focused on writing action scenes,
Cool.
and then the one I have coming up in 2 weeks is focused on how to go about doing revisions and edits and what editing looks
Nice.
like, because people can get really daunted by the revision process. Like I love revising. I love doing edits. Um, it's and
Not
while
everyone.
I enjoy writing, um, there comes a point when you're writing through an actual novel where it feels a bit like a slog.
Yeah.
And so where I struggle, and this kind of I guess segues into one of the next questions, is that I struggle with keeping myself focused on the writing process. When I'm in an education setting, like working at a school or something like that, that's when I feel like the creative juices are flowing probably the most.
Okay.
So like when I got into my master's program, that's when things really kind of like jump started my creative flow again. And it was in the time that I was working on my master's that I was able to put out my first book. I was able to produce, I was able to go through the edits for books 2 and 3 and the writing of book 4. And because by that point I had moved out of one career path into being a teacher,
Mhm.
I was still in that mindset. And so that just kind of carried me through,
Yeah.
and it kept me going up until book 5 was published a year and a half ago.
Was your master's in language arts or literature?
No, actually, my master's was actually in biblical studies.
Cool. Okay.
So the career I stepped out of was a vocational youth ministry,
Okay.
uh, and I was working on. I had started off doing a master's of divinity, which is what most pastors do.
Yeah.
But then I got 5 semesters in it, uh, and masters of divinity courses are usually about 90 to 93 units. That's a lot. It's
Yeah.
like almost like doing a bachelor's degree all over again,
Okay.
only harder. And so I just hit a point where I'm like, I wonder what I can get for 60 units, and biblical studies was one of them. And the reason why I went with that direction is mainly because that's what I had been teaching
Right.
with my students at the church, because while we had a lot of kids who had been raised in the church environment, their biblical literacy was incredibly weak.
Well,
And
it's,
that was frustrating for me. Like
yeah.
I had like our senior pastor, his son would constantly misquote or miscontextualize scripture, and it would drive me absolutely bonkers. And so I would just be like, no, no, stop talking, let me explain. And so I got into doing that. And so like since I was already in the process of doing that, I just kind of decided, you know what, that's going to be my focus. And um, I figured it's a very specific type of literature, and so
Yeah. It is. It is literature.
I can focus on
I
that
think. Yeah.
and enjoy it. The
Yeah.
problem that derives from that is that um, sometimes I can have the head knowledge, but sometimes I misapply the heart knowledge.
Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. I'm guilty of the same thing for sure. Yeah, it's another topic. It's an ongoing struggle for us, but yeah, it
Yeah.
takes a lot of patience to work with kids, with teens, either in church or school settings.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
even I was talking more from like a personal perspective of like sometimes what I've read in scripture, sometimes I don't necessarily apply it correctly. Because I might have the head knowledge, but
yeah,
the heart knowledge is severely lacking.
that's why we're all on the journey of growth.
Yeah, and it's an issue of my own spiritual maturity.
Oh,
Yeah, but
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, the but once I get into the writing phase, and I can keep a consistent pace, I'm fine with that. The editing though, I really enjoy
Okay.
because I like to go back in with my red pen and just like carve stuff out.
It's easier in some ways once it's already written. Like having a draft written is like you don't have to do the some of the hard lifting. It's. I mean, some people say the opposite, and I can see both sides. But like you have a draft there, you're not creating something new. You're just working with what's already there. So pick your poison, I guess. Yeah, yeah. You did kind of did kind of segue into the next question. So I was going to ask you about your struggles in writing, and you said it's harder to slog through the middle, but easier for you once you once you have something on the page and you're in the editing revision process. It's cool.
Yeah,
What is one of your biggest strengths? Like what's one of the like one aspect that your stories do really well?
I think one of the things I do really well is developing characters and world building.
Okay,
Um, Looking at some of the reviews I've had on Heirs of Menenias, and from people who have read through the books, one of the things I get told a lot is that I write some really good, convincing characters,
good.
and that my settings and my action set pieces are pretty good. Um,
Hey, that's
th- I, and
it's like a
and
good
I
combo.
yeah, and
And
I mean, my dad's read through all five of the books, and I think the one he struggled with the most was book five because it had been a while since he had read the others, and so um, he wasn't entirely sure where the direction of book five was going. And I'm like, and I kept trying to tell him like, go back and read and think back to the other books and all the
also you
things.
mentioned that that one was like a new cast of characters, so I'm sure there was a jump, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a I wouldn't say a learning curve, but yeah, you got to kind of it's not always going to be the same story.
Right.
Um, but he one of the things that he said is that what stood out to him is that while it is fantasy, the characters they don't operate like the focus isn't on the fantastical. The focus is
Right.
on how the characters interact, how they what their dynamics are with one another, whether it's um, parents or friends or enemies, stuff like that.
Sure.
And so that's what makes the characters, work, and that's what makes the stories work. I really enjoy writing action sequences
Yeah.
because I'm cinematic in the way that I visualize things, and so I like having that opportunity um, to put that on page because my thought is if it can look cool on the page and people can visualize it, then they can get that same cinematic feel from it that I
Awesome.
got.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, you said a lot, so I'll try to cover, try to respond to some of that. But yeah, um, good characters make or break a story. I mean, like, most of us, yeah, I've said before, we have realistic characters, or we have ordinary characters in extraordinary settings. So yeah, I mean, you might like the fantasy world of Star Wars or X-Men, but like the characters are ones you can connect to because of their humanity.
Right.
I'm writing a superhero novel. My goal, and I think I've done this well. People told me I have is to have characters, realistic characters with human flaws who are suddenly given these powers and they don't always do the right thing. They don't know what to do with them. So yeah, you have some of that too. So if you can master the character, that's great. And then combine it with a cool setting and a compelling story, and hey, you've got the hard part down already. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. Um, since you teach writing some of the time, I get some of these workshops and stuff. what is a writing or editing tip you can offer, like a tip of writing craft that you can offer to other aspiring authors that they may not know?
Well, when it comes to writing, I would say don't be afraid to put something out on paper, even if it doesn't work.
Mhm.
Um, I so like I mentioned earlier that book four started from two different projects. They were completely non-connected whatsoever. They had nothing to do with the series. This was about 12 years ago. I had started trying to create these two different ideas, and neither one of them worked independently. And then all of a sudden I had this epiphany, and I just kind of let them click into place, and the story just kind of locked in. I started drafting it pretty early on, but it took me a few years. It wasn't actually until I had finished going back over the edits for book two that I realized that I could make it work. And
Right.
so I started plotting out the different beats, and eventually it really just kind of wrote itself. And so like if you're working on a couple of projects, even if they don't look great on paper or they don't seem to mesh well, as you're trying to write them, that's fine. Set them aside, come back to them later, see what you can do with them. As far as the editing, I would say don't rush the process. A lot of people, their thought about editing is just simply doing um, copy edits or proofreading, and it's so much more substantive than that.
Yeah.
Uh, because like I was working with someone, they had this great idea for a story, but there was a lot of stuff that was really not right about it. Structurally speaking, characters were really weak, and I started saying, okay, here's what I would recommend here. This is what I would like you. This is what I recommend doing here. You don't have to do it, but these are recommendations.
Right.
And the person just fought with me about it because they're like, you don't know anything about this, and I'm like, have someone else read it, see what they think.
Hmm.
I said because maybe I'm off the mark. But then they started having their friends read it, and their friends were making the same comments. They're like, well, what's this, why is this character doing this? The internal logic wasn't making sense, the storyline didn't make sense. And I had made some structural suggestions that would offer a little bit more mystery with payoff later on in the story. And uh and so and the what was happening is the person that I was working with just wanted to get the story out there. They were
Right.
rushing it. And unfortunately, when you rush the process, that's when you can make mistakes
For
and the
sure.
story is not as strong as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, like book five, I started writing book five in 2018, 2019. Like I told myself I was going to take a year off after book four came out,
Okay.
kind of get a refresher on what I was doing. And with it, and I couldn't even go maybe a month, and I already had the outline pretty much put together for book five, and I just started putting pen to paper, and it just flowed. I could not stop myself.
Wow.
The writing was fine,
Sometimes the ideas come to you.
yeah, but then the editing process, I literally wrote it in 1 year. So
Yeah.
from December 18 to December 19. And then the pandemic happened while I
Yeah.
was going through edits.
That threw everyone off. Or did it give you more time to work on
It did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was incredibly disruptive because about 8 months into 2020, my um the thumb drive that I kept the files on corrupted. And
Wow.
I lost almost half of the book.
Terrible.
And I was able to recover about 12 chapters,
Okay.
and thankfully I had, because I physically go through and edit. I will print every chapter up, and I will redline it and mark it up as much as I possibly can physically.
Mhm.
Because I still had those physical copies, I was able to go back. I was able to recreate the chapters in order based off the edited covers or
Good
the edited
info.
copies. I pulled up, I printed up the ones where I hadn't gotten to yet and finished working through those.
Okay.
And then, because by this point I was on like my second round of edits,
Okay.
and so at that point I was able to recover it. I got it worked on. I did another round or two of edits, and during those rounds I revamped some of the structure, because I there was one chapter where I gave a little bit too much away at the beginning, and I'm like, no, 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 no. This is going to work better if I answer what happens here
Okay.
midway through the story.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and it actually worked out better, because you get a little bit more mystery, and then you get the response, you get the result on the of what happened later on, and I thought that turned out really great.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So you've been thorough in the process. It sounds like, you know. I know we've all been at the point, like the person you mentioned. I'm sure we've all been at the point where we want to just get something out and be done with it. I have,
Yeah,
and you get tired of doing edits, but you really need to do. I mean, like with anything, if you want it to be good, you need to do the hard work, and sometimes the hard work is just, you know, is you know, taking the time, not rushing the process, and all that stuff. So I'm glad you're doing that. It sounds, again, you're playing the long game.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so that's great. Tell us a little bit about your publishing process. Did you do self-published or traditional, and how did you know which path was best for you?
So, I
Uh,
actually just had this
Shortly.
conversation today with somebody.
Okay.
I independently published myself. So if you look at my label, GKJ Publishing, that's me. It's literally my initials and the word publishing. And it's a big joke. Um, so I ended up going through, and I was I started with book one. I was looking to see what I could do to get it published. I didn't want to just do vanity publishing where it was going to cost me, tens of thousands of dollars to
Yeah,
publish a book.
that's a
And
scam. Don't do that. Don't pay to publish your own book. I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
oh, I mean, you're going to pay,
Okay,
but
I mean, yeah, I mean, don't pay
you
another
gotta,
company. I mean, like, you know, you can if you're self-publishing, that's one thing. If you're paying another company, that's, yeah, no.
yeah, I wasn't going to pay a company to do it. So I went through, um, I purchased ISBN numbers, and I began the process of getting the first book out there. I found cover artists to do art.
Great.
Um, and so that basically became the process for me. Um, and then one of the things that I did, one of the reasons why I did this is because um, I am a bit of a control freak when it
Mhm.
comes to my creative work. Um,
Someone would
I
think you're right to be.
I don't like I didn't trust that someone wasn't going to come in with their own agenda and make unnecessary changes to what I was doing. Like
Yeah.
one of the questions that I've had to deal with in the past, um, had to deal with writing quote unquote diverse characters. Like I
Yeah.
don't go out of my way to write ethnically diverse characters. I'm writing fantasy. So the characters are going to be pretty diverse to begin with, because they're going to be different species. I mean, you've got elves and dwarves and dragons and all sorts of stuff.
They don't represent the categories people are looking for. I get
Right,
that.
exactly. And I don't go out of my way to do anything like that. I do have characters that are more darkly complected. Um, I have
The focus
characters that
is on telling good story more than on checking a box.
exactly. And unfortunately, people are like, "Well, how come you don't want to have that kind of representation?" I'm like, "Because it doesn't exist in my book."
I can
You
see
know,
both sides, but I think, yeah, I mean, representation is good, but I wouldn't say it should be forced if it's not part of your world or whatever. So
Right. And that's kind of the reason why, like we were talking earlier about having it adapted. Like if I was to have it adapted, I would prefer to have it done in 2D animation, traditional animation, because it doesn't matter what the characters look like. You could cast any voice actor and they'll do a good job. They'll
true,
do a
yes.
great job. I mean, you take a look at, for example, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's a fantastic animated series, and you have, actors like Jack DeSena and Gray Delisle, who are they're whiter than I am, and they're playing characters who are based in Asian folklore.
Right.
Um, and that doesn't necessarily translate to live action as well, because then it
Yeah.
looks, at that
Look,
point I'd say, yeah, that's when you want to focus on who you're casting and how you're casting.
sure, sure.
And that makes more sense. But when you're talking about doing something like animation where you're like, it doesn't matter. Like, um one of my favorite animated series right now is The Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime. And it's a little on the what's the word I'm looking for? Irreverent side as far as the
Okay.
humor and the content. But the characters are all diverse in the fact that you've got characters who are gnomes, you have characters who are humans, you have characters who are elves, you have a character who's a half giant. Um, and so, and then you have characters who are dragons. And in that, the characters look um, very different. They have a great cast of voice actors. But you can tell that because it's based off a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, that you've got characters who are, for the most part, fairly based off of um, what you would see in Central and Northern Europe in
Hmm.
11th or 12th century. You're not going
Sure.
to see a whole lot of dark skinned people. If you do, it's going to be a rarity. And when those characters do come up, it feels more organic.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas another animated series that I like is The Dragon Prince, where you've got, like, one of the things I think that they do very well in that is that they have different types of elves, and some of those elves are very pale complected, some of them are very dark complected, others look incredibly different. And so what they do is they incorporate different vocal styles, different accents to highlight the different kinds of elves and stuff like that. Like there's Sunfire elves, which are dark complected and speak with a French accent, whereas you have um, the moon. I think they're called Moonstone elves, which are a little bit more pale. They have white hair usually, and they have Scottish accents. And then you've got celestial elves that look, they've got stars spread across their skin and they sound so completely different. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah,
So I think there are ways to go about doing it, to adapting characters
that's
without
true.
having to force any kind of inclusivity, and just to make it feel more organic and natural.
Yeah, and you have more control over that when you're self-publishing. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
For the most part, I mean, for me, what I do is I write characters that I think people are going to enjoy.
Hmm.
And I don't just insert them just for the sake of, like you said earlier, ticking a box. I
Right.
insert them because they're going to serve the plot, and they're going to do something that expands the lore and the context of the adventure.
Sure.
So, like, for example, I'm touching base on the Kingdom of Ronso, for example. Ronsonians range from being uh, a little more on the tan side, like the Mediterranean bronzy look,
Okay.
to having darker complected skin. Um, and and that's just kind of how the characters flow. Whereas you go to the Five Kingdoms, to Icínq-Régn, most of the characters there are going to look very pale, very Anglo-Saxon or whatever, or
Yeah.
Caucasian. and they're going and then you've got people who are half elves, and then and so it's gonna vary depending on what region you go to. Like I in book 5, there's a region called the Frostlands, and you know, and I have characters there that are based off of a mix of Algonquin and Inuit tribes as far as their appearance, but because I can't find any translation software for those languages, I base the language off of Icelandic.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah. Translation's a whole different issue. So yeah, and, talk to me about that later. But because I work in translation in my day job, um, but yeah, yeah. It sounds like you've done your research and you're trying to draw from different different semi-realistic cultures, but you know, I guess the idea was yeah was self-publishing gives you freedom to do a lot of that stuff that I don't know yet may or may not happen with a traditional publisher. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for sharing your experience and your path with us.
Yeah.
Well, hey Garrett, I want to respect your time and honestly, we're in different time zones. It's getting late over here in Central Time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You
starting
guys
to
are.
get late for you too. But I wanted to ask you, well, you mentioned earlier a little bit you have a book 6 coming out. I mean, you're still working on it. Is there a target release date for that, or is it still going to be a while?
I don't set any kind of target release date until I get closer towards the publishing side of it.
Okay.
Because I mean, I'm in chapter 16, and there's an entire possibility that I might revamp everything and retool and restructure what I've got going on.
Oh, okay.
And um, between now and the time that I even get to edits, and the edits can take anywhere from a year to two. I mean, it. I mean, it took me, gosh, 3 years of editing just to get book 5 published
Yeah.
before
Oh,
it was
wow.
ready to
Okay.
go before it was ready to go out.
So we're
So,
not so we're not talking next summer or anything like that. Not necessarily.
oh no, no.
Yeah,
I
okay.
do have I do have a book that will be coming out probably by the start of 2025. It's going to be an anthology
Okay.
based on short stories that I've been working on.
Cool.
I've been participating in a series of writing challenges through NYC Midnight and
Okay.
Writers Playground,
Cool. Yeah.
which all have varying lengths of stories. Some of them are 250, some of them are 500. A couple are going to be um, in the thousands of words.
Yeah.
And
So this
so
is an anthology of just your short stories.
yeah, just my short stories. And so there's going to be a mix from like romantic comedy to ghost story to cosmic horror to science fiction, and so
Um,
I'm looking forward to putting that out.
is there a title of that one yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I've got a working title, but I'm not ready to share that
Okay. It's
just.
okay. Yeah. Just be on the lookout for new stuff coming out next year. I was going to ask if you had any other projects on the back burner besides this main series. So I'm glad you're keeping your toes in different things. Okay.
Yeah, and it's been
Oh,
good because I've actually been getting into writing um more suspense thriller and horror type stuff
okay.
lately, which has been a lot of fun.
Great. Okay. Yeah. It's good to have diverse interests and try different genres. So great.
Yeah.
Well, last question for now is where can people find our books and where can they follow you online?
Well, you guys can follow me online if you do a search on Facebook. For those of you who are watching on Facebook, just search for GKJ Publishing.
DK
I'm the
Publishing.
only one with that. Um, and then if you search for me on Instagram or X, it's at GKJ underscore publishing.
Okay.
And then I'm on YouTube as well. And again, you just search for GKJ Publishing. A lot of simple branding right there.
So, yeah,
Uh,
sounds consistent across the board.
but on the YouTube channel, which gets talked about on Instagram a lot, I do a show called The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips.
Awesome.
I'm in the process of planning out season 7 for that show, which launches on October 12th.
Oh, okay. It sounds like you're doing a lot to, I mean, to promote writing and stuff. And I mean, also that's part of what I'm doing here with author interviews, but you're engaging the audience and you're talking about your craft, and that's what they say you need to do. So great. Okay. and then your books are on Amazon, I guess. I don't know if they made it
Yeah.
into local
So
book or
if you go to my website, which is archivesofthefivekingdoms.com, you'll find link. There's a tab there that's in fact, let me see if I can pull it up right now. Hold on. You mind if I share something?
yeah, go for it. Yeah, share your screen. Let me see. Let me make sure.
Okay, let's see here.
Okay, you should be able to share now if you want to.
Okay.
If anyone's listening to the audio podcast later, you won't see the visual, so you'll have to come back and find the video on Facebook.
Okay. So if you go to my website, archivesofthefivekingdoms.com, I got to update it for September because I haven't updated it in a couple of months.
Yeah.
But what you'll find up here, if you click on books, you can pick on them individually.
Yeah.
But you can go here to this landing page, and you can click on any one of these book titles, and it will have the description of the book, some pull quotes from. Oh, there's the trailer for book one.
Nice.
Has pull quotes from reviews I've gotten on Amazon.
A sample yeah, good.
Yeah, and then so you can go back to books, or you can go to my store, purchase it directly, and get a signed copy, or
Cool.
people can go on Amazon. At which point, the first 4 books in the series are on Amazon through in paperback or on Kindle. Kindle's relatively inexpensive.
You get more money if they order it directly from you.
I'm sorry.
You get more money if they order it directly from you.
Yes, I get to
Yeah,
get.
yeah.
I get to keep all the money.
Support your authors. Go to Garrett's store through his website, not necessarily Amazon, and get the books then. So
Yeah, but make sure you leave a review on Amazon
yes,
and
absolutely.
good, because that's what we need.
Yeah, that helps us out. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, Garrett, for your time tonight and chatting with us. And I'm excited. I admit, like I have authors on here. I try to read the books we talk about. I'm not always able to get to all of them, but your series and the influences you mentioned sounds a lot like they're up my alley. So maybe I will get a chance to check it out.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate you being here. Any last thing you want to say to the people watching at home or listening in the future?
Um, if you've got a story idea, whether it's fiction or not, put it out on paper. You never know what it'll turn into.
Yeah, it's got to start somewhere. And only once you start can you turn it into something that might be halfway decent or good one day. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
great. Okay, thanks. That's good advice. Thanks. Well,
No,
again, check out Garrett's stuff. GKJ_publishing at most places. Go to his website. It's in the link description. Archives of the Five Kingdoms.com, and you can
archivesofthefivekingdoms.com.
find his books and stuff like that. You can also like my page, Samuel N. Harris, for future discussions and content for writers, or sign up for my mailing list at the link in the description there. When you sign up, you'll get a free sample of Fractured Heroes, which is my favorite story, my story I'm working on, with some of those favorite scenes that I think you'll enjoy. And go check out Garrett's work too, of course, and support your fellow authors, your independent up and coming authors. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening in. Thank you, Garrett, for being here with us, and have a great weekend and rest of your night.
Thank you for having me. It's been a
Yeah,
blast.
yeah. May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.
Thanks. Okay, good night.